this episode of The Sports Desk, Jack drafts Jake Funk in the top 100 picks of a fantasy draft. Josh continues to assert that Giancarlo Stanton will return. And Splash celebrates 11 days until his Ravens begin their quest for a third Super Bowl. Only on The Sports Desk. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into episode 86 of the Sports Desk. Had to check it over there. 86 is like the worst NFL number ever. So there's that. But congratulations, everyone. How are you doing, Jack? How are you doing, Josh?
Ladies and gentlemen, it's true. I need to kind of set the record straight and explain what happened. I left Jake Funk in my queue as a total joke. We were like messing around with, I should draft Jake Funk. So I just threw him in the queue. And then I ran out of time. I didn't realize it was my pick. I ran out of time. And now Jake Funk is on my fantasy team. He's RB4 for the LA Rams, for those who don't know. So he's probably going to see the field 10 times or less this season. So that's obviously bargain injury. So it's not looking too great. And I think we've kind of agreed that if I lose the league, I'm going to end up getting a Jake Funk jersey. So it is what it is.
See, I get that. But you still don't cut him. You can cut him at least.
No, I have to live with it. I'm just going to live with it the rest of the whole season. I have no choice.
Josh, tell us how you're doing.
Pretty good. I mean, I don't know. The Yankees still struggling a little bit, but good win last night. Hope they can get on a roll.
All right, love to hear it. The Braves lost to the Rockies last night, which was not ideal. I know they did beat Houston. They did beat New York the other day. So, like, I get it, but also it did stink when Robbie Grossman came up with 2 men on and struck out. So, oh well, it happens. The Braves are much better than they were last year. So, you win some, you lose some. So anyways, on episode 86 of the Sports Desk, we have an exciting docket. We have some hot takes and actual NFL takes. We can make takes that expire at game time now, which is exciting. We had a huge exodus of NFL players this weekend. Tuesday was cut day, and every team's down to 53 players. Jimmy Garoppolo is staying in San Francisco. That's fun. The Raiders cut Alex Leatherwood. That is, I have plenty of story times with that one. The NFL top 100 came out. Tom Brady is number 1. Jack is thrilled about that, by the way. Geno Smith is the starter up in Seattle. Brilliant work in the worst quarterback battle of all time. Denzel Mims requested a trade, but he's still in the Jets as of right now. The Rams and Bengals had a brawl so bad that it almost got us kicked off TikTok. And the Dodgers have won 90 games. Thank you to the Mets. And Aaron Judge is on pace to beat Roger Maris's record. What a time to be alive. Where do you guys want to start?
We should start with the usual hot takes. Let's see what people got.
Okay. Hot takes, always a fun place to start. I made a take yesterday. The Buffalo Bills will be the number 1 seed in the AFC.
I don't think it's a hot take.
I mean, it's a take.
It's a take. I agree. I mean, just like you look at the Chiefs chart, like the Chiefs Chargers, probably 2 next best teams. They're gonna be battling out a division. They're kind of be eating or killing themselves in a sense, while the Bills can easily go 6-0 in the division, which is a giant advantage.
Which I have made a take, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty tough for any team. Like you said, if those teams are like battling each other out, it's going to be pretty tough to catch the Bills if you're fighting just to force your way out of your division even. So I feel like though it's going to come down to either Kansas City or Buffalo, but right now my gut's telling me Buffalo. So that's the fun thing about takes is like you can think it's true now, but then weeks from now it could be wrong.
Listen, you're playing in a division with the 3 Stooges. I don't think the Patriots are any good. The Jets are literally the New York Jets, and the Dolphins are like, if you go on the Dolphins Wikipedia page, the owner, it'll be Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen. It's not Stephen Ross, it'll be Josh Allen. So
he was suspended, by the way.
Well, it's not Stephen Ross anyway.
That's a good point. That's a good point. But yeah, Josh Allen owns the Dolphins. I mean, last year the Bills didn't go 6-0 in their division. Should have been 7-0. Didn't go 6-0 in the division because of the weirdest weather game in the last couple of years. Since remember the Washington San Francisco game when Like player, it was 9-0, and guys were like sliding on the field because it was like so watery.
Yeah, there was that really there was that picture of like Nick Bosa and people just like sliding on the
I
field.
should find it. That was my #1 tweet ever on uSTADIUM, and I think that's the reason why we have so many followers. If I don't make that tweet, we have like 5 followers, and none of us are doing the sports desk. So I'm gonna take all the credit for that one. Anyways, pick a sport. Let's go, Josh. Pick a sport.
We'll start with football.
All right. We have a Jets take here. Anthony. Leanza Anthony. I don't know. He says the Jets claim Ben Mason. Let me make sure that hasn't already happened yet.
That hasn't. They haven't claimed anyone yet.
Okay. Yeah, because Ravens' 5th-round draft pick from 2 years ago has been up and down practice squads across the league. So, yeah. Also, I do want to talk about Josh Johnson in a little bit. So, Ben Mason has been on the Ravens practice squad, Patriots practice squad, Bears practice squad. And now he's back on the Ravens practice squad. So, could he go to the Jets? I know Jets fans really wanted him in the 2021 draft, but the Ravens eventually took him in the 5th round. And he has not developed into the starter because the Ravens have a multi-time Pro Bowler as the starter, of course, in Pat Ricard. Jack, what do you make of the Jets claiming Mr. Ben Mason?
I don't know. That's a tricky one for me. I think. Where was he at last again?
He was on Baltimore's preseason team.
Preseason team. I'm gonna disagree.
Okay. It's 2 agrees to 7 disagrees, so you're not the only one.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
All right.
Agree. Joe Douglas made it seem like today. Joe Douglas made it seem like they're not claiming anyone, so I don't think Ben Mason will be a Jet.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and disagree with that. Disagree. Not gonna win too many points, but cool. All right, Jack, pick your sport.
Are there any football takes or not football? Why do they say football? Of course, there's football takes. Baseball takes. Let's see.
Yes. Okay, we have a couple. Oh, we have one tonight. Mets to beat Dodgers in the series. I'm gonna have to go out on a limb and say Jack would disagree with that.
I just did.
I'm gonna go ahead and disagree with it as well because the kicker here is they have to win the rest of the series.
Dodgers.
Because if it's
a 3-game, right? How many games are they playing?
Yeah, it's 3. So it's 2 more games.
They have to win tonight. They have to win tomorrow.
Yeah, but they have DeGrom on the mound, so that's already, to me, that's a win. And Kershaw, first game back, might be a little rusty. Maybe the Mets get to him, win the game. So I think
it does concern me a little bit that Kershaw was kind of rushed back. I don't think he really went through too much of a rehab stint. I think they just kind of were like, he's healthy. We're gonna throw him on the roster now. So I don't know how that game's gonna go. That could go either way. But the Dodgers pitching rotation is way too deep anyway. So I don't think it's really gonna matter that much.
Okay, I do want to throw it out there that the whole Mets DeGrom thing, they have scored 1 run, 5 runs, 1 run, 2 runs, 3 runs in his starts. So DeGrom's going to win. They're going to win. That doesn't usually. Well, I guess it usually happens, but I don't think they're going to win the next 2 games. Like tonight, it could be like a 1-0 loss. Like we've seen that. Heck, DeGrom has been human. He's allowed earned runs in 4 of 5 starts this season. What's stopping the Dodgers from winning?
What's stopping the team with the best lineup in baseball from going yard on him 2-3 times at least?
Even once.
Yeah.
Even once.
But I think you have that different. If you're DeGrom, you wake up excited for a start like this where you're going against the Dodgers. Where if you're going against the Nationals, for example, it's it's the Nationals. You kind of let your guard down.
If you're DeGrom, you got to wake up excited for every single start.
DeGrom has had 5 starts. 3 of them have been against playoffs.
My point is we're arguing DeGrom allowing a run is bad.
Yes, it's bad in the case of this because the Mets don't score when DeGrom pitches. This is
fair. But I think tonight, he wakes up for the start. He's okay, we just came off a loss. This is a big game. I have to have my A game tonight. We're against the Nationals. Even though he knows the Mets won't score for him, it's it's the Nationals. The Mets have to score some runs for me, right? It's not possible.
Oh man. You guys are awfully ambitious. This is the Dodgers team that's on pace to win 400 games this season. So
Yeah, if they win 26 of their last 34, they have the record. I think it's 34. It might be 30.
okay, yeah, the Dodgers 90 and 38.
That's such a ridiculous record.
Okay.
90 and 38.
Guess what their winning percentage is since the All-Star break?
700.
Higher.
Might be higher. Yeah, 800.
It's like 800.
789. They are 30 and 8.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
If they
This team is
actually
too damn
they
good.
win third. Do they have? I don't think they have that many games to play, but
I think if they win 26 out of last 30, they get the record for best record of all time.
yeah, 26 out of. Actually, they could lose a couple more games than that. They have so they've played 128 games. They have 34 games left.
So it is 26 out
Listen,
of 34.
as the
So they go
resident
26 and 8.
Dodger fan,
They tie the record.
as the resident Dodger fan, let me just say that as exciting as that is, obviously, you know, you got to do it again in October. That's all I'm gonna say.
We also talk about it like in baseball. I think there's the biggest difference between the regular season and baseball and the playoff. I mean, there's the biggest difference from the regular season to the playoffs is baseball. Because in baseball, you're not like the games you might toss out your fifth starter and win. You're not doing that in the playoffs. It's your top pitchers. And for me, with all the injuries with the Dodgers, that's kind of the question mark.
The Dodgers lead baseball in both runs scored and runs allowed. That's pretty good.
That's
I don't think it's going to be a
also,
problem.
when you're playing. It's different in the playoffs when you're playing a team like the Mets, who's going to be DeGrom, Scherzer, Bassett in a 7-game set versus the Diamondbacks, for example, where it's Matt Bumgarner, who's been awful last 2 months and couldn't even tell you another Dodgers pitcher. I mean, Diamondbacks pitcher. It's different.
You mean Zach Allen?
Yes.
Come on now. I will be honest here.
Oh, ye of little faith.
There is one. It's I'm blanking on his name. Merrill Kelly. Merrill Kelly has been like the best pitcher in baseball you haven't heard of this season. Also, Zach Allen's been really, really good. So I think the Diamondbacks was a bad example. they have two starters.
The Rockies.
Okay. The Rockies have Daniel Bard, who can confirm is very good.
Every team has good players, though. But the difference between the teams in the like the Nets, you look at their lineup. Take out 2. We'll go through 1 through 7, 1 through 6. Is good hitters every time. You look at their rotation in the playoffs. It's going to be 2 of the best pitchers in baseball, and Chris Bassett, and the best closer in baseball. So it's different than the Diamondbacks, where in the lineup 5, 6, 7 easy outs, really.
Okay,
Like,
I don't. Okay.
I don't think the Dodgers' offense will be as great as it is in the playoffs.
That's just how baseball works.
That's how baseball works.
That's
yeah.
what I'm
It's
saying,
like,
though, but,
you
like,
got to build up to it.
Yeah, but that's to me, that's the difference between like the NFL, where it's the same guys playing in the playoffs, in a sense.
Sure.
And NBA with the same guys playing. In baseball, the raw kind of gets condensed who's playing.
Okay. Also, trivia
I can tell you
question:
now
who
for the
leads the
Yankees,
Rockies
like,
in WAR this season?
Yeah, like Marwin Gonzalez isn't playing in the playoffs for the Yankees, but he'll play a couple times a week during the regular season.
Okay, fair. Who leads the Rockies in WAR this season?
CJ Cron?
He is third.
I'll never guess who's first.
Not even going to try.
Brendan Rodgers, who has 15 defensive runs saved. Wow. If Tommy Edman didn't exist, hey, I mean, maybe you got a Gold Glove caliber second baseman. Good job, Rockies.
Let's move on. Let's do like 1 or 2 more takes.
All right, give me a sport, Jack.
I'm actually looking at a specific take that I want to touch on right now. It's
Okay.
from Nick L. He says Sauce Gardner lets up at least 1 touchdown in week 1.
I disagree.
I
think it's gonna be a heavy run attack and Mark Andrews for the Ravens. So I don't think he'll.
Okay, I will defend Lamar Jackson here for the passing offense.
Of course you will.
Week 1 last season, the Baltimore Ravens threw for 217 yards and scored 27 points. In 2020, they threw for 270 yards and scored 38 points. In 2019,
2020 was against a Dolphins team that was tanking.
In 2020, it was against a playoff-bound Browns team. Try again. In 2019, 378 passing yards, 59 points against the Dolphins. In 2018, 252 passing yards, 47 points against the Bills. In 2017, 20 points, 111 passing yards, but they did score 20 points. The Week 1 Ravens do weird things. Now, granted, they did lose last time, but they did score 27 points. So, Week 1 Ravens, I would not bet on that if I'm a Jets guy, but. I am super excited about Sauce. He was my number 1 overall prospect. He's going to allow a touchdown at some point. That's just how the NFL works. Like, everyone gets burned at some point because the quality of competition is so good. Jalen Ramsey gets burned. AJ Terrell had an all-pro season last year, all-pro caliber season because the voters are absolute buffoons. Trayvon Diggs is actually burnt toast. You know, every good corner, every elite corner gets burned from time to time. They allow a touchdown from time to time. The only guy last year that didn't allow a touchdown was Trey White, and he tore his ACL on Thanksgiving, so he missed a third of the season. So I think it's going to happen at some point, but it's tough to say, oh, yep, week 1.
I would bet week 3. I'd bet week 3 against the I think week 3 is the Bengals. That's when I'd bet it. I think Jamar gets him.
Ooh, that's a fun
that'll be fun to watch.
Or T. Higgins.
I'm not going to make any Rams Jets jokes.
Seems like he's going to travel
last time, but I would like to see Cup against Sauce. That'd be fun.
Okay, I'm going to give the game.
Going to travel much.
I'm going to give the game, and you say, will Sauce allow a touchdown? Okay?
All right.
Ravens.
No.
Browns.
No.
Bengals.
Yes.
Steelers.
No.
That's tricky because I don't know who their quarterback's going to be.
See, but I'm thinking about this way too, right? If he's not going to travel, if he's going to stay on one side of the field, teams are probably like Deontay Johnson's going to be on the side where DJ Reed is, most likely.
Okay, hey, George Pickens.
I guess.
Okay, over under. Sauce allows 2.5 touchdowns this season.
I'm going to go over. I think he allows 4.
Yeah, 2.5 is just so little. Like, it just takes, like what you said, it takes one play getting beat. So I'd go over. That's a high. Under 2.5 is really high expectations for a rookie.
Okay.
Or for most corners in the league.
Okay. Fair play.
Jalen Ramsey I think he went in 2020. He only allowed like 1 touchdown all regular season. So
I can't fact check that.
Like the play that comes to mind for me with Jalen, like just like one play is in the playoffs when Devontae comes and runs across the other line, runs across the other side of the field, and just sneaks into the end zone. It's like no corner can cover that. Doesn't matter who you are. It was Jalen Ramsey.
That wasn't even Jalen Ramsey. That was Nick Scott, who was supposed to move and cover Devontae, and Nick Scott completely missed
but it's like
his
that's just uncoverable at a certain point.
Cough. Sorry about that. Okay,
anyway.
Jalen Ramsey, NFL career. How many touchdowns has Jalen Ramsey allowed in his NFL career? Take a guess.
He's allowed 10. I'm going to say 10.
I'm going to go
probably less.
I'm going to go 7.
In 6 seasons. This guy isn't like Jesus. He's allowed 16 touchdowns.
16 touchdowns, okay.
And in the playoffs, he has allowed 2. He allowed 2 last year.
Are we counting the face mask in the Super Bowl? I suppose we have to.
That is a touchdown.
Yeah. It went down as a touchdown, so I suppose we have to count that.
Yeah, he's allowed. See, the thing is, he hasn't allowed more than 3 in a season, but he's allowed at least 2 every season. So it's like,
that's pretty much how it like works though for most cornerbacks. Like you're gonna get burnt every so often. It's just part of the game. And like sometimes it's like a weird circumstance too. Like we're talking about Jalen Ramsey. He was credited with allowing that like 63-yard running touchdown that DeAndre Swift had. It was like the Lions were in their own territory and the Rams were going to blitz. Jalen Ramsey went for the blitz, but he was lined up against DeAndre Swift. Swift got the ball and he took off and scored. So Ramsey got credited for that, even though it wasn't his fault. So it's
that's how you have to do that, and like it has to be assigned to someone, and that's one.
That's who he was lined up against. So it's just like Weird circumstances like that can come into play.
That can be one issue with like a coverage bust. Who do you blame it on? And if you blame it on someone different, say like PFF grades it as the corner, or Pro Football Reference grades it as safety, or I see, it's really neither of their fault. It's the defensive coordinator because he's an idiot. Like there's a nuance to it.
Only the case if you're Greg Williams running the cover zero.
Oh boy.
I think we should start doing that though. If it's the defensive coordinator's fault, they should get credit with the touchdown.
That would be fun.
That would be actually a really interesting way to hold coaches accountable, is by like crediting it to the defensive coordinator.
Or, okay, what if you do, you also have a section of like unguardable, like you like perfect coverage, but you allow a touchdown, right? Like the one I think is
Calvin Johnson touchdowns.
Most Calvin Johnson touchdowns.
Yeah.
Yes. Like say Eli Apple in the Super Bowl. It wasn't bad coverage. It's just Cooper Kupp and a perfectly thrown ball. Like you can't, or the one I think of is Mahomes throwing a touchdown to Demarcus Robinson in Baltimore a couple years ago. Like there's nothing Peters or Humphrey can do there. That's a perfectly thrown ball. If he has any better coverage, he's tackling him, and that's a penalty. So
the touchdown that comes to mind for me is the Julio Jones against the Patriots touchdown, where it was like the foggy game.
Oh yeah, Julio built different.
Like that was just unguardable. Like doesn't matter who you are, you're not.
As much as I hate to say it, the Gronk touchdown in Super Bowl 53, or I guess there was a pass before that Brady completed. I forget who was even covering him in that game, but it was like just you can't defend that. It's just part of it.
You know who else you can't defend? Anyone?
Trying to understand your transition here.
You can't defend the Raiders for drafting Alex Leatherwood with the 17th pick in the draft. And you can't defend this track record. Look, every team makes bad picks from time to time. It happens. Even the best teams make bad picks. Even like really, really good teams, even teams that go to the Super Bowl, win Super Bowls, they make bad picks. The Patriots won 3 Super Bowls after whiff, after whiff, after whiff, after whiff, after whiff, after whiff. It's the draft for a reason. But the Las Vegas Raiders, previously Oakland, have taken this to a whole new stratosphere in terms of whiffing on draft picks. We are going to go back a few seasons, and the Raiders, it's not even a competition with other teams in the league. There are some other teams that draft poorly, but the Raiders are trying to one-up themselves. I'm convinced they are trying to one-up themselves. So let's go back. We're going to go all the way back to 2016. So at this point, the Raiders have actually hit on their last 2 draft picks. They hit on Khalil Mack, the number 5 pick, became a defensive player of the year, a 3-time All-Pro. And then in 2015, number 4 pick, they hit on Amari Cooper, 4-time Pro Bowler now. Granted, a lot of that's with Dallas, but they actually hit back-to-back huge picks. They had to. They needed to. They hit them. Boom, boom. They make the playoffs in 2016. But before they made the playoffs in 2016, let's look at this 2016 draft class that has a total of 0 Pro Bowlers. Carl Joseph, first-round pick, bust. Jihad Ward, second-round pick, rotational edge rusher around the league. Shaquille Calhoun, never heard of him, third-round pick. Connor Cook, played 1 NFL game, fourth-round pick. DeAndre Washington, fifth-round pick. I mean, he's cool. He ran for 1,200 yards over 5 seasons. Corey James, sixth-round pick, played 26 NFL games. Fidel Alexander hasn't played since 2017. Good job, Vegas. 2017, it gets even better. I promise you. This is unbelievable how bad this draft class is. It starts with Gary and Conley. So by virtue of making the playoffs in 2016, the Raiders don't get a great pick. They have the number 24 pick and proceed to piss it away. Gary and Conley, 3 seasons of the NFL, 31 games, has not played since 2019. But it gets even better. Second round pick, Obi Melifonwu, 7 NFL games. Top 60 pick, plays 7 NFL games, hasn't played since 2018. Third round pick, Eddie Vanderdoes, hasn't played since 2019, 19 career games. It's not even that the Raiders are drafting bad players that just perform or underperform. They're drafting players that are not playing, that are not, that are not doing the thing. Fourth round pick, David Sharp, he's in Baltimore now. He's 37 games. Markel Lee in the 5th round, 45 games. 7th round pick, Shalom Luani. Now, 7th round pick's not exactly fair, but hey, Trayvon Hester played 41 games across 3 seasons. So respect there. 2018, the one hit they've had in the last, the one real early hit they've had. Colton Miller, very good tackle. Can't complain. Rest of the draft, PJ Hall is okay. Brandon Parker, whatever. Arden Key, 54 games played. Maurice Hurst in the 5th round. Starter caliber puncher in the 5th round. Okay, cool. Congratulations. Let's get into accelerated mode. Over the last 4 seasons, the Vegas Raiders have just not been able to draft in the 1st round. In 2019, they had 3 bites at the apple. They bit nothing, nothing, and nothing. All 3 first-round picks had their 5th-year options declined. Clelin Ferrell, number 4 overall pick, horrendous pick at the time, even worse now. Josh Jacobs is a Pro Bowler, but he's a running back. He didn't get his 5th-year option accepted. That's a problem. And Jonathan Abram has played a lot of snaps to his credit. When he's been healthy, he's only played 28 games, but he is one of their most, heavily used players when he's on the field. So whiff, great. 2020. Well, you know how the 2019 guys just didn't have their 5th-year option accepted? The 2020 guys didn't even play 2 full seasons with the Raiders. Henry Ruggs is in jail. Damon Arnett, I think, is also in jail. 33 total games so far. Great job, everyone. But it gets even better. Alex Leatherwood lasted 1 season with Vegas, and he's gone. That's a brief history of a disaster.
The disaster known as the Las Vegas Raiders. Henry, I saw that tweet.
I'll give Mike Mayock some credit for the late rounds. So you got Max Crosby, Hunter Renfrow there.
Okay, that's true. That's true. The 2019 class, you get Trayvon Mullen, who they flipped yesterday. I mean, whatever. Max Crosby is a top 5 edge in the league. Foster Moreau would be a good tight end if he wasn't number 2 to Darren Waller. Hunter Renfrow is a Pro Bowl caliber guy. Even the 2020 class, Brian Edwards is somewhat competent.
I like Brian Edwards. I think he has a little bit more to offer though, but I like what I've seen out of him so far.
I will say Ruggs was having a breakout season before the off the field stuff. So that's not bad. He's not a bad player. It's just the pick ended up poorly. Leatherwood was a reach, but you did get a very talented defensive back pair in Trevon Merrick in the 2nd round and Nate Hobbs in the 5th round. So there's that.
Yeah, it's just rough to see it happen again to the Raiders. It's you have to kind of just figure what's going on in terms of just what are they doing with their 1st-round draft picks, and it's the same franchise over and over again, despite changing head coaches a few times too. So it's what's the deal? When are they going to figure it out? Or is it an organizational issue up higher up within the team?
Something tells me the 1st-round picks were all John Gruden, and then later in the draft was Mike Mayock.
Interesting. See, I think if you flip the Merrick pick and a Leatherwood pick, I would have been cool with it on draft night. I had Merrick as a 1st-round caliber player, and I had Leatherwood as number 50. It was either him or Mac. It was 49-50 back Alabama guys. But, I do think Leatherwood does get a bit of a bad rap. He was terrible last year. You can't get around that. But, cutting a guy, he did play 17 games for you. He was at least on the field for you, as opposed to off the field stuff like an Isaiah Wilson, for example. But that was such a bad pick, Tennessee. But either way, it's a horrendous run. And now Alex Leatherwood is in Chicago. So we have failed 1st-round pick, Alex Leatherwood, and right now a failed 2nd-round pick in Tevin Jenkins that they traded up for in Chicago. So that's the right guard pair. I'm interested. You guys think there's any salvaging Alex Leatherwood's career?
Let's be honest, he's in Chicago. I mean, we'll see.
I agree,
we'll see
but
what happens,
I think sometimes you're the 1st-round pick in a city, there's pressure on you, and
yeah,
I get it. It's still got claimed, so it's a different story. It's we claimed him. I get it's still his rookie contract, so they're still paying him a good amount, but there's not that as much pressure.
I just think that at some point, at this point, now that he is in Chicago, it kind of also depends on will Justin Fields have a better year this year?
This is true, and he's slated to be the backup behind Tevin Jenkins for what that's worth.
Yeah, so get some time to kind of learn the system and see what he can do. I mean, it's possible. You can't ever say anything's impossible, but
for sure,
yeah.
For sure. Hey, I will be honest that Colton Miller wasn't good his first couple of years. Then he's blossomed into one of the top, 12 left tackles in the league. I think it's a legitimate conversation if you're taking him over like Garrett Bowles or Orlando Brown in the division. Maybe not Slater, but he's a very good tackle. So sometimes offensive linemen, take a little while to get going, and maybe that's a case of Alex Leatherwood just takes a little while to get going. One player that did not take a while to get going, just kidding, he did, is Jimmy Garoppolo, who 2014 draft pick, wins a couple Super Bowls in New England, comes over to San Francisco.
As the backup, by the way.
And
you guys still win the Super Bowl, but as the backup.
As a backup, he does have more rings than the Rams have since Sean McVay came around. So just saying that.
Just all behind Tom Brady's on the
Well,
pitch.
okay.
That's all I'm going to say.
They count, unlike your 2020 Dodgers. So Jimmy Garoppolo.
Oh, that one counts.
For no one. Jimmy Garoppolo is staying in San Francisco. He has restructured his contract. The 49ers are keeping him on board. Do you guys think this is a sign of mistrust in Trey Lance, or is this a savvy business move? Josh, you first.
Savvy business move. I mean, they cut him. They had to take the cap hit. Who else was? It seemed like no one was trading for him with that cap hit. So you might as well, for now, keep him. He's the top backup in the league, let's be honest. And I know he has a no trade clause, but if a quarterback goes down, now they can trade him and possibly actually get something for him.
Jack, as the division rival here.
I think it's mistrust in Trey Lance. I think that there's too much. I've seen like a lot of talk about Trey Lance as last season continued. It's like a lot of people were waiting to see when he would get legitimate like play time in the NFL, and it just hasn't happened. And like I constantly get the sense that like nobody really is sure whether Trey Lance is actually ready for it. And it's like, I agree with you, Josh, in that Jimmy G is probably like the best backup in the league. Like he can still come in and play at an NFL level. He won't necessarily be like winning you games unless like the rest of the team surrounding him plays pretty well. But he can still come in there and play at like a respectable NFL level. At the same time, though, it's just like this is it's going to be really telling the first few weeks of San Francisco's season. If Trey Lance does not play as advertised, then you need Jimmy G to step in. And then you kind of have to, I'd say you might have to start hitting the panic button a little bit if that's the case, if you're in San Francisco.
I mean, even week one, giant. I know you're playing the Bears, but if Justin Fields outplays Trey Lance, like there's a somewhat problem there. One, Justin Fields picked after Trey Lance. Two, I think everyone would agree the Niners have a 10-time much better team than the Bears. So there's some pressure on Trey Lance now week one.
So there is pressure on Trey Lance, but I would also argue that he's in a very good situation. There's the fallback option of just play the 2018 Ravens offense. Like if you don't trust Trey Lance to make the throws and be an NFL caliber quarterback 600 times in a season, don't do that. I think teams try to get too cute, try to get too smart with it and say, I think the Jets might do this with Zach Wilson this year. And I think the Jags did this a lot with Trevor Lawrence last year, that you don't necessarily have to throw your rookie quarterback into the fire. You can run the football. That is a thing that I know the 49ers cut Trey Sermon today, but Elijah Mitchell exists. Deebo Samuel exists. Heck, Trey Lance is a gifted runner too. And I think if you just let him, again, if you install the Greg Roman offense, or guess what, Kyle Shanahan, pretty gifted mind in his own right. If you install the quarterback run offense, I think San Francisco might be even better than what Trey Lance could give you as a passer year one, because that's just such a high floor with the talent around him, the run blocking in that team with Trent Williams, who's the best run blocker in the NFL. George Kittle's a top 5 non-offensive lineman as a run blocker. McGlinchey is a great run blocker. The interior trio, actually hate the interior trio. It's the worst in the league, up there with Green Bay, but they can run block. I do think San Francisco is this is a savvy move to get Jimmy Garoppolo back, because the 49ers know, hey, Garoppolo has missed time before. There's nothing stopping, heck, he missed time last year. There's nothing stopping Trey Lance from missing time. And that's not Trey Lance is going to run around and get hurt. No, reality in the NFL that quarterbacks can get hurt. So having a competent backup is important. This is why, Jacoby Brissett keeps getting jobs. This is why there's guys across the league that Marcus Mariota got a job in Vegas to back up Derek Carr. Did Derek Carr need it? No, but you get backups have jobs for a reason at any position. So
Josh Johnson.
We are going to have a trivia question with Josh Johnson momentarily.
The eternal backup Josh Johnson.
The eternal backup Josh Johnson. So yeah, I think San Francisco, it's a good move, and I think San Francisco can. If you're Kyle Shanahan, I think you need to have a conversation with Trey Lance on a scale of 1 to 10. Be honest, how much do you trust yourself to be a high-level passer in this offense? If the answer is not as high as you want it to be, I would pivot and say, we are going to run the ever-living Christ out of this football. We are going to run the ball as much as any team in the league. We're going to run the ball more than any team in the league outside of Baltimore, because Baltimore's a bunch of lunatics. I think San Francisco has the ability to just win a bunch of games this year, but I don't necessarily know if they're going to lean into that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's also like you always have the option to trade him still. If any starting quarterback goes down, they will most likely be looking to trade for Jimmy Garoppolo. I do feel bad for Trey Lance. I mean, this puts some pressure on him now, a lot more than I think he deserves. And people forget he's only played, I think, 4 football games in the last 2 years, not including the preseason.
It's very low.
Yeah. I think it's 4. Might be 3 last year, so 4 in the last 2 years. It's going to take him. I know I said the Bears game. It's going to take him a quarter or two to get adjusted.
You're not wrong in that the pressure is definitely on too. Like that move, that move is basically like saying we have a guy to fall back on if you don't play up to what we need you to play up to. So there is definitely a little bit of added pressure in terms of that trade. So, or not that trade, that signing. So I think it's just interesting though. It totally like caught me off guard when they announced that, because I was like, he was requesting a trade, like he wanted out, and they convinced him to stick around. So now Jimmy Garoppolo understands he's the backup too. Like that's part of the deal, is like he's got to understand he's playing backup here regardless.
It's just weird too. Like who reportedly was in team meetings, was practicing on the side. It seemed like it was kind of everyone was going their separate ways. For him to come back it's very surprising.
Yeah, definitely came out of nowhere.
Okay, I am going to have something special for us. It is called the Josh Johnson Ryan Fitzpatrick Show. A little bit of trivia for your Wednesday. We are going to guess the teams that have employed either special journeyman quarterback. So here we go. Let me pop it up. Finally got the extension to do it on this computer. All right, 17 teams. 2 minutes. Jack, go.
The Los Angeles Wildcats. I don't know if that'll
NFL
count,
teams only.
That's an XFL team. The Miami Dolphins.
Okay. Josh.
Jets.
Jack.
Lions.
Bills.
Just keep going.
Rams.
Buccaneers.
Can we both keep going, or do we have to go back?
Yeah, keep going.
The Titans.
Josh.
Seahawks.
Wow. L. Come on now. You missed Broncos, Ravens?
Yeah. I thought Ryan Fitzpatrick played with the Seahawks for a year. I got them wrong.
Let me think. Who else? Washington had both, right?
Yeah, Washington did have
Jets
both.
and Bills had both.
Bengals had Fitzpatrick. Let me see how many I can get. And okay, here we go. We got Bills, Jets, Dolphins, Communisms. That should be both. Ravens, Bengals, Rams, Titans. Let's see, Falcons, Panthers, Bucks. You said both. That's right. Bengals, Steelers, Browns.
Do you
I
have
don't
the
think
Broncos?
Broncos, Chargers, Chiefs, Giants, Eagles. Okay, sure. Maybe use practice squad only. 49ers, Broncos again, New Browns. Who else? Josh Johnson. Denver, Philly, Giants, Jets.
Cardinals, maybe?
I don't think so. Didn't know on the Cardinals. Colts.
Panthers.
We got Keith in the chat. So he has Jets, Bills, Commanders, Rams. Shoot. 3 more.
Did we guess the Panthers already?
I don't. Panthers are a no. It's in alphabetical order.
Oh, okay.
Texans. Jags? No. Lions, Tigers, and Bears. Am I Bears? No. Texans. We got Texans. Dolphins, Vikings? I don't think so.
10
Bears.
seconds.
Packers, definitely not.
Same.
6, 5, 4,
Cardinals.
3, 2.
It's the question marks too. Darn it. So 15 to 17. I will happily take that. So there's the Ryan Fitzpatrick and Josh Johnson tribute.
There we go.
So one other thing that goes on a long time, and we don't maybe not necessarily. One thing that also has been going on for a long time that we don't necessarily love watching is the NFL Top 100. Although Josh and I did get the pleasure of watching Josh Johnson play quarterback for us last season. So
here's why we don't love watching the NFL Top 100, because it takes so freaking long. Like, jeez. I think the problem
with it too is like it's voted on by the players. The players only play like what, 13 teams? 14 teams now, I guess.
Jamar Chase has played against 16 NFL teams.
Yeah, so it's like literally half the league hasn't played against Jamar Chase. How can they properly vote on him? And it's not like these players, I don't really think after the game they're going home and watching highlights of Jamar Chase. So like, it makes sense to me that Tom Brady and Aaron Donald all are going to be 1 and 2, or because these players know what Tom Brady's done. They've all played against him many times. So I think we kind of have to remember that when we look at the voting. It's voted on by the players.
Exactly. But that doesn't mean we can't still hate the list. And
no, we can. No matter what the list is, it's going to get hated on.
Yeah,
for sure.
I agree.
Everyone's going to find a way to hate on it because, like, their favorite player isn't number 1 or something like that.
Okay, this is a good point, but Josh Johnson makes up one person. And I agree with Keith. A lot of players vote for their buddies too.
Yeah, for sure.
Mac Jones made the list. How many Alabama guys voted for Mac Jones because he's an Alabama guy? Right. Extremely biased. I agree. And the NFL doesn't tell us who's voting. They don't have this, well, there's 400 players that vote, even spread across the teams. Because even if it's an even spread across the teams, guys went to Alabama, guys went to Georgia, guys went to LSU. LSU had like 7 dudes in the top 20. Like, yes, Jamar Chase deserves to be there. Justin Jefferson deserves to be there. Burrow deserves to be there. I can go on and on. But you're telling me that Tyrann Mathieu didn't get a couple extra votes from an LSU guy or SEC guy in general? Because think if you're, let's say you're, I don't know, Bradley Chubb. I happen to know where Bradley Chubb is from. So Bradley Chubb from Georgia, right? Went to North Carolina State. So what's stopping Bradley Chubb from, say, voting for a guy he played against in high school or voting for a guy that he's buddies with because, you know, they went to a rival high school or played together in college or played against each other in college, you know, someone that you're familiar with that game. And yes, NFL players are more intelligent than us as fans. I agree with that. However, they have their own biases. So it's not this perfect list. Is it better than ours? Potentially. But again, I know that I watched 17 games of Jamar Chase. I know that I watched, you know, as many, there's 272 NFL games this season. I watched at least 250 of them, if not more. I don't know if, say, I don't know if Christian Kirk necessarily was watching the Baltimore Ravens last season. I don't know if he was watching every move Tyus Bowser did. How does Christian Kirk, how does he know what Tyus Bowser is doing? Why does he have to watch Tyus Bowser? And there's even guys that don't watch the Super Bowl. Like, I forget which member of the Eagles it was, but he said he did never watch the Super Bowl, and then he played in the Super Bowl. That was the only time he would watch the Super Bowl, was when he played in it. So
I think it's also like, we think these players go, like what you just said, we think these players, they don't want to go home just watch NFL highlights. I'm sure they play the game, go home, and try to do other things. So like, for someone like Jamar Chase, the league probably only seen his highlights, a couple of his highlights. Like, they're not studying his film unless they're playing against him.
Right. And if you're not the same position, right? If you're an offensive tackle, who cares what Jamar Chase is doing, right?
Yeah.
And Jack, I got one that's going to grind your gears. Let's say a couple years ago you played this team, right? You veteran, right? But you played him a couple years ago, and he's not the same player now. How do you think the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to evaluate Cooper Kupp? When Cooper Kupp went up to Pittsburgh, 0 catches, donuts across the board. He just won the Triple Crown. Is a member of the Steelers going to rate him properly? A member of the Browns, haven't played them in 3 years. A member of the Cardinals, a member of the Bengals.
Cardinals are definitely going to rate him properly.
But could he overrate him because you saw him 3 times?
Exactly.
Remember
It's like
player, there was like the list that came out and had like Derek Watt in the top 10. I forget forget who else was on the list, but it was like the worst top 10 list ever.
Did it have Jake Funk in the top 10?
That's
probably, no. That would be a good list then. So probably not.
Jake Funk's number 1, by the way. No, I'm just kidding.
And you have guys like voting for totally different like criteria. You know, like a fullback makes the list, kicker makes the list, but some guys didn't think of voting for Justin Tucker, right? Some guys didn't think to vote for Kyle Juszczyk or a guy like Pat Ricard. Even there are some criminally underrated NFL players. Why do you think, to me, every year, offensive linemen are screwed, just totally screwed, totally hosed. Do you think wide receiver is going to vote for another wide receiver? Also, it could go both ways. That if you're, say, Devontae Adams, why would you vote for Cooper Kupp anywhere close to the top 20? Because remember, the guys get a list of 20. They send their list of 20 in, and it's compiled.
Can I ask when they send their list in? Do you happen to know that?
Yeah, it's around when they do Pro Bowl voting. So at the end of December. Well, it's a little after they do Pro Bowl voting, but it's before the playoffs, and they record the segments, I believe, throughout the summer. So you can get guys, Luke Kuechly, Rob Gronkowski would have made the list had they not retired. Kuechly a couple years ago, but Brady was number 1. Then he retired, so he was taken out of the list. And then he's back in, so he's put back in the list.
Yeah, so that's kind of also like with this particular list. That's what like kind of draws my ire, is the fact that it probably wouldn't have even been Tom Brady, but he unretired, so now suddenly he's number 1.
List from this year. Number 6, George Kittle. Number 7, Trayvon Diggs. Number 8, Kyler Murray.
7.
Okay, look. Okay,
I know this is one guy's list.
Diggs, he wasn't all pro. I know he's like polarizing player, but it's at least there's
is insane. No matter, that's still insane.
He had 11 interceptions. 11 interceptions. No world where you can
justify him being the 7th best player in the NFL. I'm sorry, that's just an awful take.
No,
he wasn't okay. He wasn't all pro. Do I agree with it? No, Diggs didn't even make my top 100. But I could still see the argument.
Diggs was either catching passes or he was getting burned. There was
Yannick Ngakoue, number 16.
Okay, that was made by Gus Bradley.
I like
or a Titan.
You can smell the bias in that one.
6th best player in the NFL? No. Kyler Murray.
George Kittle has been, in his career, has been a top 6 player in the NFL.
But it's this year.
I know, but still.
This year's list I have.
He's an all-around great football player. I will defend Kittle. I will defend Diggs. I will not defend Yannick Ngakoue. That was probably made by a Titan because the Titans just can't block him. He's had, I think, the last 3 times Yannick Ngakoue has faced the Titans, he has 3 forced fumbles and 3 fumble recoveries, something like that, and a touchdown. And he did it with 3 different teams. And now he's back facing the Titans again twice. I have a conspiracy. I don't have conspo with me, but conspiracy theory. The Indianapolis Colts made the Yannick Ngakoue trade just to demolish Tennessee. Other 15 games don't matter. But
This is like I'm getting the same energy of like when the Patriots signed Antonio Brown just to beat the Dolphins week 2, so they could get a win in Miami. Okay. And then Brown was out after one game.
Okay, Yannick Ngakoue career splits against the Tennessee Titans. His teams are 2-8. That's horrendous. But he has a touchdown. He has 4 sacks. He has 3 tackles for loss. And he has pass deflection and 3 forced fumbles.
All right.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
There you go. Food for thought. We should probably move on though, because we're going on for quite a little bit here. So
you're not wrong. All right, we have a QB1 controversy settled in Seattle. Geno Smith wins the job over Drew Lock. Not really fair for Drew Lock. Did get COVID halfway through, so it's kind of fighting a losing battle.
Geno didn't even win it. Drew Lock just lost it, in my opinion.
Good point.
That's fair.
Okay, so I want one word from both of you. Was that the saddest quarterback battle in NFL history? Jack?
Absolutely.
Josh?
No, it's a different Geno Smith quarterback competition.
Oh my
wasn't
Lord.
even really
Listen, it was the saddest battle because it was barely even a battle, like you said.
But I think was Geno Ryan Fitzpatrick even a battle? I guess Geno was going to be the starter. But like
the thing is, Geno, like
his own player punched him, and that cost him the job. That's sadder.
Geno Smith versus Eli Manning.
It doesn't matter how bad Drew Lock played. Your own player punching you being the reason you lost quarterback competition is so
that
sad.
is bad. Yeah, that is pretty bad.
I'll give you that one. I think they made the right decision. I would argue they made the right decision.
I think they did with.
Agree, but I also like Geno Smith's gonna win you more games, I guess. But like, you might as well just see what your Lock has.
We allowed Geno Smith to have like a 98-yard drive against us last season.
Geno Smith was actually halfway competent. I will give him credit.
Yeah,
they weren't losing games because Geno stunk.
I agree,
they were losing games because they weren't very good.
If you're the Seahawks, like you're gonna be an average team, probably. You might as well put in Drew Lock and either get a top 5 pick to get a quarterback next year or somehow make the playoffs. Like, if that makes sense. Like Drew Lock's like, you'll either be good.
You should start out the year with
team,
optimism.
You're kind of screwed. You're kind of like, if you're an average team, you still don't have a quarterback for next year, and you're just average. You might as well be a bottom team or a playoff team and say, okay, Drew Lock's kind of the answer, I guess, or okay, we have a top 5 pick and get CJ Stroud.
I'm gonna go ahead and make a take. I think that this is the season where Tyler Lockett finally drops a pass in the end zone.
That's such a bizarre take.
You think
they're going to be in the red zone that often, though?
That's a good point. Like, we don't know. It's like I don't think that Lockett. I think Lockett. He's obviously probably going to get a touchdown or 2 or 3 or 4, but I
drafted him in fantasy, so yeah,
hopefully. But yeah, I feel like the connection that he had with Russ was just like.
Josh,
it's unattainable with Geno Smith. Yeah, oh my god, Geno was see. What's sad too? It's like I was high on Geno. He was great at West Virginia.
Yeah,
I was like, oh my god, we have Geno Smith. Like he's good. And then like no, it just
I think Geno Smith has had okay play at times. I call him 158.30 Smith. So there's something. He has a perfect game with a perfect pass ratings. Does your quarterback? Probably not, unless it's Lamar Jackson. Because
that's a good question. Jared Goff did. I don't know if Stafford does.
Oh, I can't.
He's been playing for 12 years. He has to have at least one, but
he's not good. Like Geno, that college West Virginia team was really good. Like he was in Heisman consideration one year. He was a very good quarterback. I thought he was gonna be a top 5 pick, and then he didn't have a great senior year. That hurt him a little bit.
Do you guys know about Will Levis, Kentucky?
Yeah, I think he's a top 5 pick. I love him. I know you hate him.
Did you know that he puts mayonnaise in his coffee?
Yeah.
He puts mayonnaise in his coffee.
Correct.
I mean, that's not why I love him. I think that's really weird, but
yeah,
very good. I think it'll be a really good prospect.
Okay. I got a trivia question for you. Matthew Stafford, does he have more games with a 150 passer rating or more games with a passer rating below 39.6?
I'm just going to go with the lower one.
I think more was lower.
Lower than 39.6. Otherwise, wouldn't be asking.
Yep, he has 3 games with a sub 39.6 passer rating, Arizona, Green Bay, New Orleans. 2 of them were as a rookie. 1 of them was in his NFL debut, so I'll give him some slack there. He has 1 game with a passer rating above 140 or 150. That was his first game as a member of the Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah, if you went like 40, I might have
yard bomb to Van Jefferson.
39.6 was too exact, so I was like, okay, it's definitely.
Oh no, 39.6 is if you just throw the ball into the turf every time.
Okay.
That's the number. I'm not saying, oh, well, it's 22.
Yeah, you're like, okay, this gets me right there. And I was like, oh. I'm not smart anymore now.
Jack, what's your least favorite quarterback to wide receiver pair you've seen as a Rams fan?
One of them involves Case Keenum.
Whoa.
I don't know who the receiver is, but it was pretty bad with Case Keenum.
You're not
They
wrong.
actually had some decent receiver. Like, I liked Tavon Austin for a little while. He kind of fell off, though. Kenny Britt was our wide receiver 1 for some time.
Okay, Kenny Britt was kind of nice with it.
He was good.
He had
He
2,000-yard seasons, I believe.
Yeah, he did. I'm trying to remember who our receivers were back around that time, but Case Keenum was not good.
Okay, you're not wrong. Case Keenum has gone to an NFC title game. Has your quarterback gone to an NFC title game? Well, Jack, yours has, but
mine's gone farther. We'll say that.
Okay, that's a good point.
Fair, my quarterback can't go to an NFC title game.
Hey, neither can mine.
Yeah, so.
And Matthew Stafford's better than Lamar Jackson and Zach Wilson confirmed.
Ooh. Josh,
yeah, I remember.
Are you taking Lamar or Stafford?
What was that?
Are you taking Lamar or Stafford? No, Josh.
1 year?
Like week 1. You need to win the game week 1. Are you taking Lamar or Stafford?
I'm high on Stafford. I think he's a Hall of Famer, so Stafford.
Okay.
The only reason I made the joke was because one's in the AFC or in the NFC, and the other 2 are in the AFC. So
I need to win 1 game. I'm choosing Matt. I'm very high on Stafford. I think he's a Hall of Famer already.
Okay.
And
fair play. I have him like 2 spots higher in my QB rankings. Are you Herbert or Stafford, Josh? Week 1.
I don't know. Herbert's my MVP pick, but I love Stafford too.
We have to do the award pick next week. Darn. Okay.
The only reason I take Stafford over Herbert isn't even a bias thing. It's just because Herbert doesn't finish the games better than Stafford does. Like Stafford, you're more looking, if the Rams are like trailing late, you're looking for Stafford to put on a clutch performance, and he's probably going to do that. Herbert, every time I watch him, I'm looking to see, can he start hot and can he like keep that going throughout the game before he burns out?
I think like what Herbert can do, he's like a big guy who can run. I mean, you don't want him running, but he can run. He has an arm. He has athleticism. I think as his sample size gets larger, like we forget, last year was only his 2nd year in the NFL. He's still only going to get better and better. It just like Stafford has that worse and worse. I don't think it's gonna get worse. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't get better.
Yeah, it's we'll see. But when you get off to like such a ridiculous start, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it becomes like tougher to one up that every year.
Last year I would blame Brandon Staley more than I blame
100%. You blame Brandon Staley for a lot of those.
Okay, let me defend the Stafford over Herbert for a second. I said this. I did a Chargers deep dive on my personal channel, but I think the issue I run into with Herbert is that it's twofold. So first of all, there were games last year that Herbert stunk in and was like really bad.
Texans.
And people don't acknowledge it because, they just lost week 18 and that wasn't Herbert's fault. You're right. Week 18 wasn't Herbert's fault. But what about throwing 2 interceptions against Dallas in a 3-point loss? What about throwing 2 interceptions against New England in a 3-point loss? What about throwing 2 interceptions, including a pick 6 to Denver? Like, bro, Denver. Why are you losing to Denver? Throwing 2 interceptions, including a pick 6 to Houston. Why are you losing to Houston? If they beat Houston,
they got killed by Houston.
They lost by 12. If you beat Houston, if you beat Denver, if you beat Dallas, you lost by 3. If you beat New England, you lost by 3. Dallas and New England, both of those games were at SoFi Stadium. If you don't lose those games, you pick one. Pick one. You can have minus 1 bad performance. Okay, you make the playoffs. It doesn't matter the Raiders game because he was really good in the Raiders game. The stats even don't do it justice. He only had an 80 passer rating in that game, but he was just because his completion percentage stunk because of the low like a bunch of 1st and 10s, 3rd and 10s, like forcing the ball down the field. But my argument with Stafford is that I think Stafford knows what he's capable of and what he's not capable of. I don't think Herbert is at that level yet, and I think Herbert is playing too conservative. I think Herbert is almost scared to throw interceptions at times, and it's kind of Rodgers-y, but Rodgers has so many big throws that it doesn't matter that he's scared to throw interceptions. Herbert is too timid. Like now, it's weird when you look at the highlights. You think, oh, well, he has like 50-yard bombs every week. No, he doesn't. Herbert has one of the lower big-time throw rates in the NFL. I'll pull up the exact number here, but like Herbert is almost skittish to throw the ball deep and let it cook. Let Russ cook thing in Seattle. Let Herbert cook. Let him make these deep throws because there's no reason that a quarterback with as gifted of an arm as Justin Herbert should have a lower big-time throw rate than Carson Wentz or Mac Jones. Mac Jones gets crapped on like, oh, he can't make the big play. Why did Mac Jones have 3 fewer big-time throws than Justin Herbert did last year? Like, why is that a thing? Why did Mac Jones, Matt Ryan had higher big-time throw rates than Justin Herbert? I know that's part on the offense, like play calling, but I think Herbert's almost scared to make big throws because, it could be an interception. Well, probably not because you're such a gifted player. And you pair that with he had the lowest turnover worthy play rate and like lower than Brady, lower than Rodgers, lower than Kyler, who had a ridiculously low one for a long time. So like there's a pro and con to it, but I don't think he's reached his full potential. I think people are projecting him to be a top 5 quarterback when today he's not one. Could he be in 6 weeks? Yeah, absolutely. But I think people like to do it with Kyler as well. And Kyler lived up to the hype. Speaking last season was awesome. Then he fell off a cliff, got injured, sucked in the playoffs. People are like backing off, but Herbert hasn't had that moment of everyone wants to back off because his high profile disasters are a week 2 game against Dallas, right? A week 7 game, a week 8 game against New England. Who cares? And the week 18 game with all the marbles on the table, Herbert didn't fail. He didn't succeed, but he also didn't fail. He wasn't the one failing. So that's my point there.
He wouldn't have been in that position, though, if he didn't fail in Houston a few weeks earlier.
Right, but you don't care about the Houston game.
Yeah, obviously it didn't end up mattering, but it was like, that's something people should care about at the same time because it's like...
I think people care. He's still a young, second year in the league, though. He's going to make mistakes, which is part of it.
But like with the high standards they're holding him to, you don't expect him to walk into a game like against the Houston Texans and just pee the bed. Like that's pretty much what he did. And like when you're being held to that high standard, you should be walking into those games and destroying the competition.
I agree, but I mean, I love Stafford too, but he did the same thing this year. You look at the Niners game, like
but the thing is, like, I agree with Splash's point that like, Stafford's not supposed to. Stafford is like not afraid of throwing interceptions as much as he does throw them.
I think
he threw
Stafford
17 last season, something like that.
Stafford's his worst,
but he's not afraid.
When he's his most confident, he does not care about throwing picks, and that's when he gets himself in trouble. And like he gets to his most confident and throws a couple picks and goes back down, gets better. Then he gets most confident again. Then he has a 3-pick game again, goes back down. It's like a cycle with him.
I agree. Stafford did have a top 10 turnover worthy play rate in the NFL, sandwiched between Zach Wilson and Trevor Lawrence. Not exactly ideal there, but he did couple it with a top 6 rate in terms of big time throws.
When you're throwing enough touchdowns to make up for it, I think you can. I don't want to say overlook it entirely, but it's like not as big of a concern. Obviously, you want ball security. You don't want him to be risking throwing the ball to the other team that often. But like when he's running back out there with a short memory and throwing touchdowns to make up for it, you can kind of like say, all right, it's a problem for later.
Fair play. All right. 2 quick MLB points, then we'll get out of here. First, congratulations, Jack. The Dodgers are the first team to 90 wins. I think we touched on that earlier. Will they tie the record? 116 wins, 2001 Mariners, 1906 Cubs. Will they tie the record? Josh, go.
No, I don't think so.
Jack.
I don't think so, just because it's going to be a little hard to get there. Like, I think it's possible, but I'm going to go with no.
All right. And another record on the cusp. The American League record for home runs in a season is 61 by Roger Maris. That's also the Yankees record, obviously. Aaron Judge is up to 51 home runs. Josh, will your boy break the AL record for home runs in a season?
I think he will, but I'm a little worried he tries to force the issue too much.
Okay. How many will he finish with? Give me a number.
I think 63 to 64 home runs.
Okay. Jack, will Judge break the American League record for home runs?
I think he gets to 60 even.
Okay. I think I made a prediction that he would get to exactly 60 earlier in the season. However, I am very confident that he will break the record for right-handed hitters, which is only 58.
Yeah, that's
beatable. That's beatable.
In the American League, at least. It's only 58. Standing at 59.
Eventually, we're going to get to the issue where teams won't pitch to him because they'll be scared to give up the record.
Hey, it didn't stop Mike Backstick from laying one into Barry Bonds back in the day.
No, yeah, Barry Bonds, Barry Bonds got intentionally walked like 50 times that year. The next year got intentionally walked 130 times. Something big.
Okay,
like
let's
that.
we're going to have a Barry Bonds, a brief, I'm sure it will be brief, Barry Bonds propaganda. First off, Barry Bonds should be in the Hall of Fame. Second off, in 2004, he was intentionally walked 120 times.
Yeah.
Like guys actively trying to do the whole walk routine often don't walk 120 times. The only guys the last few years to walk 120 times, Juan Soto. Barry Bonds is the all-time leader in home runs, all-time leader in walks, all-time leader in intentional walks. He has an OPS over 1,000 despite playing in San Francisco for the majority of his career. He has a career OPS plus 182. That's 82 points above the MLB average. And while he was a Giant, it was 199. The only hitter with the higher OPS plus than that is Babe Ruth, 205. So there's the Barry Bonds propaganda. He should be in the Hall of Fame.
Teams would walk Barry Bonds. Teams would walk Barry Bonds with the bases loaded because they were so scared.
Yeah, and that's not even a Tony La Russa being stupid thing. That's like a viable strategy, and to be fair, it did work, but it was a viable strategy. Because the guy behind him wasn't going to end the game. Do you like intentional walks, Josh? Because I don't.
See, I don't like it, but there's no way to stop it. Like if we just say you can't intentionally walk someone, they can just throw 4 balls. You can't really argue.
Well, no, I'm opposed to the idea of intentionally walking a hitter.
I think it's part of the strategy of the game, so I kind of like it.
Okay,
I don't like taking the bat out of that player's hands because that's why fans go to games. But I think in the strategy part of the game, I do like it.
Because
I can agree with that,
it's like bottom of the 9th or bottom of X inning and the run doesn't matter, I'm against it. Like if it's, I don't know, runner on second, Aaron Judge is coming to the plate, and you walk Judge to like get the double play, I think you're allowing an extra base runner.
You see, I agree, but at the same time, like Angels intentionally walked Judge twice the other night. The third time they didn't. What did he do the third time? He hit a home run.
Okay, what's the odds he hits a home run on a given at bat?
And the odds he gets on base are pretty high, though. Where you might
still over 50% chance the pitcher wins the battle.
But you have to think about it. What's the percent chance they win the next at bat? It's higher.
You're right, but it's still over 50%.
I think situations score.
Barry Bonds, there was a couple years there that he was, for his career, he had an on-base percentage of 444s. But there was, after, like, in the 2000s, Barry Bonds, holy Christ. Barry Bonds got on base 52% of the time in the 2000s. Okay, then we can have the argument that you're probably going to lose, so just walk him and lose anyways. So, any last words from anyone?
We didn't touch on the Rams Bengals brawl that happened earlier.
We don't want to get demonetized, Jack.
Yeah, we're not going to show any clips from that, obviously, but that was. I just will echo what Sean McVay said. I think the important thing is that nobody got hurt, and teams are handling it internally.
I'll just say, dumb idea that the two teams that played in the Super Bowl have a joint practice. Whoever thought about that should be fired.
Yeah, that was dumb. Yeah, joint practices are just stupid. I understand like the reasoning behind why you might want to do one, but it's just it's all. I cannot think of one that hasn't led to a fight. I just can't.
Austin Riley just went ding dong. That's my cue to get off. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, ring a ding ding, that Le'Veon bell, that notification bell, so you can get notified when we have our next episode, which will be next Wednesday. At this time, we're going to have award predictions, probably season predictions. It's going to be a fun time. Also, Matt Barkley is the best punter in NFL history, at least until Jordan Stout punts in a real NFL game. All pro Jordan Stout. It's time to push the propaganda. We will see you next week. And Aaron Donald does, in fact, train with
Super Bowl
knives.
champion. Aaron
Trains
Donald.
with Cincinnati Bengals helmets now.
Trains with Cincinnati Bengals helmets, a Super Bowl ring, and knives. And splash trains with water bottles.
This is bunking. One of these is